Hello and welcome to the Southbound Sports Show. I'm your host, Richie Leahy, here with my co-host, Matty B. Hoping everything goes well on the stream. Trying to update some of our mixing stuff to sound better and get rid of some of the background noise and things like that that have been happening. So we'll see how this goes. The main thing that I want to talk about today, because I don't know if you are aware, or at least maybe I'm wrong, but I think it's the first time that the Detroit Tigers have made the playoffs since we started this podcast. And for people that have listened all the way back, they were one of the initial supporters of the show. So we kind of cursed them, I think, where they were like, hey, we're going to big supporters, big fans. I know I talk about Michigan football, so there's like a connection there anyway with the state. And having them on the AL side, because let's be real, when we started the podcast, the Pittsburgh Pirates have had no hope. They've had no hope of making the playoffs, really. Maybe 1 year. And so we used to talk a lot more baseball when we had some other hosts on here. But over time, I always wondered, do they regret becoming friends with the show if we were that cursed? But then Michigan won the national championship, so everything was erased. And maybe that is a key part. They got the win today. I think Detroit, they were the dogs, maybe. I don't know if they're the underdogs or not. But I do know that it would be awesome to kind of see them make a run. I definitely would rather see them other than, I see a lot of people predicting the Yankees and Dodgers. Nobody cares. I'm sure the ratings would be through the roof for that series. But I don't know. I was joking around because I told some friends that with Pirates not using Bucktober anymore, I should steal that and come up with an Atlanta Braves version. Call it Choptober, Matt. What do you think of that? Because they backed in the most annoying way yesterday because the Braves came up, had a big lead against the Mets. They blew it 3 times, and I thought no one wants to win this game. And then they had to win the last game. And they barely snuck in. Too many injuries. They're down right now to the Padres. And if the Braves somehow got through this, I would love to see a Braves-Tigers World Series, because that way, whatever team won, I'd be cool with it. Some of these major teams with baseball, I feel like when we talk about college football here at the end, which I want to bring up because I don't want to forget. Remember how I talked about Gonzaga joining the Pac-12? Apparently, that was breaking news, right? I didn't know we broke it on the show. There was a huge Twitter fight between that Nicole Auerbach or something, whatever. I don't know how to pronounce her last name. And I think she's a Michigan alum, so I probably should know that. But she's the one that's on NBC now, the Big Ten coverage. Her and our old boy, Brett McMurphy, were fighting because I guess Brett was one of the ones that broke the story. That's probably where I saw it when I brought it up. About how Gonzaga is going to join the Pac-12. Pac-12 is also in talks with St. Mary's and someone else, right? In basketball only, because they're trying to cut off the Big 12. McMurphy, his connection, I think, is with the Big 12, maybe Oklahoma State, Oklahoma, something like that, originally. So he probably had some notice that the Big 12's looking at UConn. They want to get in the basketball only type thing. Gonzaga going to the Pac-12 would have been huge. And now it's supposed to be locked in 2026. So we might have some more realignment stuff happening. But I just wanted to mention it because I knew I was going to forget. But apparently there was a big thing about sources leaking it last week that were unverified. And they were fighting over reporting. But it turned out to be true, so it didn't matter. And then they made a comment about Mel Tucker. I think that was her thing. Is Mel Tucker fired yet? Because I guess McMurphy broke the story of Mel Tucker too, which is even funnier. If McMurphy took down Ohio State and Urban Meyer, and then he took down Mel Tucker and Michigan State, get the guy out. He should be an honorary Michigan alum. They should just give him, how they give those honorary degrees. Bill Cosby got one once. They should give McMurphy one. I hope I'm saying his name right, because I never see the guy on TV, so I don't know how to pronounce his name. I'm probably reading it wrong because I don't have it in front of me. But that's my intro today. Tigers, thankfully, they finally did something good. And before the Pirates, to be honest. Nutting He's looking for another way to not pay. But I do hope that they do well just because of the Michigan connection. Anything baseball related you want to talk about? I know the Cardinals didn't make it, I don't think, right?
That's a big negative.
Yeah, they fought. I was surprised how much, like, the Diamondbacks made it because they were choking away, and then the Mets got in because of the Braves loss.
Well, it was a weird season for the Cardinals because they've typically been a team that is willing to spend money, or so it seems like, that they go out and go after the prospects that are going to help them contend. And it just, pitching's been an issue for them, and they just haven't gone out and addressed it at all.
Well, that's what the Braves, everyone was saying how great the bullpen was, and the bullpen blew 2 leads yesterday afternoon, I guess. And I thought they were going to come in with momentum because it was almost like it is a weird season because all the wild card teams? So the NL East has 3 teams in, and normally it's a little bit more balanced than that, I believe, because it's been the Phillies and the Braves, and they flipped, where the Braves had been winning the division, the Phillies come in the wild card, and then they stay hot. And I think that time off really hurts from the top seed. I don't know which teams get a bye. Is it the top 2? So, I think taking time off hurts. And the reason I bring it up is the same thing with college football, the expanded playoff coming in. Having that extra time off is going to hurt a team. They have to stay fresh. Look what happened with Georgia, Bama this past weekend. Bama came out on fire. Georgia had a bye, I believe, before that game. I don't know if they both might have had a bye. I didn't look at Bama's schedule. But whenever you have time off, sometimes it gets weird like that. You come out flat, and then by the time you make it a game, it's game over. So the NFL seen the same thing, where some of the top teams, you get the bye, and I think that's kind of why teams weren't really too worried about it I think the NFL only went to 1 bye, right? I want to say baseball still has 2.
Yeah.
Because I think the Phillies and the Dodgers both have a bye. So in the NFL, only the top seed, and then they have the 3 extra wild card games, right? So it doesn't really affect them too much, because normally the number 1 seed is usually a lot better than the other NFL teams, and I think they reseed too. They get the lower seed in. But the NFL had a lot of weird upsets this past week. So much that I thought it was going to ruin my fantasy. So I was joking with you before in fantasy because at one point the Jets were playing so bad, and Breece Hall's been my high scorer, that I thought I'm not going to score at all this week. I might only score 50 points because I watched my projection just go down. And then finally my boy Nico Collins got things rolling. And he had such a big game that he basically drove my team. I think Breece Hall only ended up with 3 points. I don't know if he even got hurt, because no one's watching the Jets Broncos on TV. Let's be real. The Broncos have been so bad that both times I bet against them. The last week they came out hot, and I picked up the D against them because I thought Bo Nix has been playing awful. And then they played good, and I made a huge mistake, and that's been my only loss. Even though I don't think playing a different D would have helped me that week. But I don't even know, Tennessee upsetting the Dolphins, is that really an upset? Because Tua's been out, and the Dolphins look bad without him. And so I understand the pressure from maybe the organization and the fans for him to come back. Personally, I don't think he should, right? I think Tua is going to be regretting that long term if he does. But I don't know. It was a weird weekend where I think a lot of bets got broken. I did talking to someone that had one of the polls where you pick the teams, and they said that 50% of their picks are out this week, which I
can believe that.
Unbelievable, because normally I think the Jets was a big one that they had that most people picked wrong because they figured, well, that's an easy win. And if you don't know how those polls work, basically you pick a different team each week on who's going to win. And so normally a lot of people end up picking the same teams because they assume that's going to be an easy matchup, right? So they look at, here's so-and-so, I'm going to go ahead and do that. and it just doesn't happen. Like going through, it's kind of crazy. The Colts upset the Steelers. I don't even know if I'd really call that an upset, but Broncos, Jets, the Buccaneers beat the Eagles. The Buccaneers have looked pretty good. I'm trying to think what other ones off the top of my head. The Commanders, is that an upset? Commanders have been playing so hot that I don't want to jinx it, but Daniels, once these coordinators get some tape on him, I feel like they're gonna drive back down to earth, right? They can't keep playing this well. They put up 42 on the Cardinals. Not that the Cardinals are good, right? And then the Raiders beat the Browns. I'm not even sure how, but the Chiefs ended up beating the Chargers. Did you see that Rice injury?
No, I heard about it, but I didn't actually see it.
I didn't. Well, I had the game up and I missed it live. And of course, they're talking about it immediately. So Mahomes threw a pick. And you know how every time he's trying to tackle, he kind of just goes low for the knees? He's been doing this for years, right? He throws his whole body like right into the ground. It's kind of weird because I've seen him do it in the past, and I've always wondered, like, that is like the worst position to be in. Because some of these guys are big linebackers, think like Derrick Henry, running you over when you're just kind of turtling and putting your shoulder into him. Like, if he crushes your shoulder, that's your throwing arm, dude. You're done. So the fact that he did it, and of course he puts his head down and everything, so he didn't see him. The guy dodged him, and he took out Rice's knee. Like, it was a bad tackle so much that even after the game, Andy Reid said, like, I don't think we're going to get good news at all. Like, we watched it. It was a bad hit. Like, Mahomes, 100%. Most quarterbacks, you would think your job is to stay up. You got the interception, stay up and slow the guy down so someone else can tackle him, right? Don't get hurt is the number one quarterback rule. So don't get hurt. Don't dive at his knee. Like, everything Mahomes did was wrong there. And he's done it in the past, so they kind of never bring it up until, of course, this devastating injury. But he has to. I wonder, I've been watching Mahomes play this year a lot because they're always on TV. He hasn't looked the same. And is something wrong? There's been rumors that the locker room's kind of messed up because of the Kelsey stuff. And honestly, I believe it. Kelsey hasn't looked good. Mahomes has been a one receiver quarterback this year, which he's never been. And so even after the game, someone said, well, I guess we have to throw the ball around, because even Andy Reid made it seem like, yeah, he's only been staring at Rice. There's been times where he's just throwing in the triple coverage, and that's not like Mahomes at all. So, honestly, the injury might make them a better team. I have not been impressed with Mahomes this year. It almost seems like he's mailing it in. And maybe he's at the point where, you know how Tom Brady always had those early games where it's like, they're done. They're done. They look bad. I mean, the Chiefs are undefeated still, I think.
They are, but it's also been because they've had help from the officials, getting late penalties and stupid stuff.
And that's the thing where now you're at the point where, is it to the point where now they're going to come back down to earth, or are they going to just continue to win, but they're going to be frauds in the playoff because the refs have been helping them along? Like, I don't have a read on their team, but if I was betting right now, normally I've been a big fan of Mahomes. He's won me over, and I would have been enjoyed watching him play. But honestly, I just haven't this year. He hasn't been good. He hasn't looked good. He's been just like mailing it in. So I don't know if the locker room stuff's true. It seems like him and Kelsey, well, I don't even know. It's hard to tell if they hang out, right? People are like, oh, they're always together. It's like, no, they're always doing commercials together and stuff. So, like, they're always working. It's kind of like the work guy where it's like, yeah, I got to go hang out with the guy from work. We're not really friends, but everyone knows that, like, we're together at work all the time. And so they have to reach that other level of familiarity or whatever. But I don't know. Like it's
We
weird.
we have this work friend.
Yeah, hey, I'm going out with my work friend, and people are suspicious. They're like, "What do you mean a work friend?" He has a famous girlfriend though. Like, oh, okay, weird. Weird that you'd bring it up. And then his Mahomes' wife is like always talking out about like people talking trash on them and stuff. And then they also have the Butker, like his political stuff that he was getting into, where he's still like the number one jersey for the Chiefs, which is like is honestly weird to me. Because I don't know if I would just buy someone's jersey because I like their political view. Much like I like wouldn't go buy a CD of someone. It's like I keep them separate. What are you doing? Like keep them separate. People gave like Harbaugh a bunch of trouble because he's like going to see the Pope and stuff. But the same people then are gonna go ahead and praise like other celebrities and stuff. Like it's insane. Like keep it out. ESPN has already struggled and found out that when you talk about political things, that fans tune out. But that's kind of where I'm at. Steelers with the Colts, though. Richardson got hurt, and then he almost screwed my team too. I had Brees Hall go down, and then Richardson go down. He was actually out. I've been like playing no quarterback for 2 or 3 weeks, and I don't know what to do, Matt. Give me some advice. Should I switch to Deshaun Watson? I dropped Lawrence. I gave up on him. I figured he's only good because Dabo was good. Right? He's going to be a bust. Like you can't look at his career and think, "Oh, that's a hell of a career." No one's going to say that about Trevor Lawrence. Like no offense to him, I just think that he's done. At this point, it's going to be too hard for him to be a successful quarterback. And for people, I mean, I guess maybe he could turn it on, but how many quarterbacks start like super late and then turn it on? He could be like what, a Matt Stafford or Philip Rivers, but he's not even as good as what Matt Stafford was, right? So just a crappier version. I don't even know who to compare him to. Dan Fouts.
I mean, I definitely think you could go that route with starting Watson because I think Richardson's going to be on and off with this injury.
It was a hip injury, dude. Like he got hit. Who hit him? Was it Minka? I don't even remember. But then it seemed like they put him right back in. This is the dumb thing that I watched Sharon Moore do with Loveland, the tight end at Michigan, where he got injured in the shoulder. And they thought, hey, you want to give it? He's like, I'm going to test it out. And then they threw right to him, and he landed on it again, and he was done for the day. The Colts were like, Richardson, you hurt? He's like, yeah. And they're like, quarterback draw. 3. Let's see if you're actually faking it out there. And then he took another shot, and it was like, oh, are you guys serious? I would want to go down there and just scream at the coach. I wasn't anywhere near the game. But that's how I felt when that happened. Because he's playing the Jacksonville Jags, though, and they're the worst defense, like in fantasy. Like he has such a favorable matchup that even if he's questionable, I'm wondering if I could sneak him in. Although Deshaun Watson's playing Washington, which also has a bad defense for fantasy, so they might be able to get some points. I don't know. I'm at a point where teams are also starting to get into bye weeks, so it could be messy. It could be messy. I'm going to have to kind of give it a little bit. But I do know that, surprisingly, all of our teams are pretty even this year. I mean, there's some teams, like I'm second in scoring. So there's been like a high scoring for a couple teams. But other than that, every other team's been like 2 games behind at most. So there could be some flux.
Well, I mean, this ties in with fantasy / our NFL news. But I just look at, of course, I felt like I had a relatively stable team. And then Devontae Adams decides to pull the old Christian McCaffrey.
He's still waiting for Tom Brady to come out of retirement. I had Tom Brady on my team. If Tom Brady came back, that could solve all my problems. And your problems. Right?
Well, part of it is, it cracks me up that you have single-handedly drafted your team just to beat me. Like there's no other logical rhyme or reason to your drafting other than you just want to destroy any sense of happiness that I have.
No, that's not how I draft my team. How many Michigan guys do you have on your team, bro? 0. That's the difference. I drafted Nico Collins, 33 points. Moody, my kicker, 13 points. So I'm getting good production from these ex-Michigan guys. Maybe you should look into some of them.
Well, I I looked at your team and I see I have Kyler Murray as my keeper. So then what do? Draft all of the Arizona Cardinals players so that when we do play, there's absolutely no chance that.
Well, you know I have a weakness. I have a weakness for drafting Ohio State wide receivers because all year I have to listen to how they're the best in the Big Ten. So this is the first time that I've drafted. I had Chris Olave right. Even maybe not even Ohio State guys. Like I had Devontae Smith. Like I like rookie receivers. I have Worthy, which luckily Patrick Mahomes did me a huge favor. He took out Rice, bro. Worthy's number 1 right now. There's no other guy that's on their team that's going to be a contributor. It's almost like, and that's what frustrated me the most watching him, because I had Worthy, and there would be times where he would be wide open, and it would be like 1st and 10. And yeah, it's a check down for like 5 yards. No, he's throwing in the triple coverage for Rice for an 8-yard gain. And it's like he's not even looking at anybody else because it wouldn't even be times where Worthy's open. They had that other guy. It's not Kelsey. Is it? I want to say Hardman, but I know I'm probably wrong. There's like another guy. He's like a skinnier dude. He's not as big as Kelsey, but he's like number 84 or something. Where there were plenty of, maybe 83. There were times where he was open, and I thought, I was playing Kelsey the one week, and every time that guy would come open, I was like, oh my God, is that Kelsey wide open? And then I'm like, why am I worrying? Because he's not even throwing to him. He could be wide open. He might as well just lay down and take a nap. And it wasn't even like Kelsey and him were like trading wide open routes. And I was just thinking like Kelsey's owner has to be so mad because he's open like 5 times in this game. Mahomes isn't even looking at him. That's why I started looking at the locker room riff. But I drafted Harrison because I wanted to give myself maybe a little bit, I don't want to say as a challenge. That sounds like a dick move. But I thought, oh, Harrison will be good. And then I did draft McBride so you couldn't get him. Because I thought, well, I can't let you have McBride. And then he got hurt anyway. Which probably helped me. Because when he got hurt, then Harrison got a touchdown. Because I thought I needed to handicap Harrison because I honestly didn't know how good he was going to be. I thought he would be all hype. Right?
Well, and I thought because of how confident I felt in Kyler Murray and keeping him I didn't think that he was going to elevate the Cardinals to a high caliber team, but I just thought he's going to get me a lot of fantasy points that partnering him with Harrison would double dip my points.
See, I went the other way.
You stole him away, and then I was like, Xavier Worthy. I wasn't enough. I wasn't enough to.
You weren't on the draft call. I was telling everyone I'm picking Worthy. You guys can try to run the score up, and then it wasn't even the guys on the call. I'm like, run the price up on me, bro. I'm getting Worthy. Michigan missed out on him because of some shenanigans. There's no way I wasn't getting him on my team. I watched him single-handedly just carry Texas to probably the playoffs. Although him and Quinn Ewers, let's be honest, Quinn Ewers is pretty good. We'll talk about college here in a little bit, but that's why I wanted him. And of course, I was hoping my goal was I get Worthy cheap, and then he'd be my keeper. And then of course they ran the price up, so it won't even happen. I was surprised you didn't go for Reed again, because I got Reed, and I think you had him last year, didn't you?
I had him, but I mean, he didn't have consistent points for me.
Yeah, but him and Love have been a great connection. Like his game, he had 26 points last week. When Love came back, I thought the Love injury was going to really hurt me. Packers rushed him back. He didn't look the same. And I thought, why? I mean, it benefited me in fantasy, but it hurt the Packers. I feel like they could have just taken the loss to the Vikes or ran Malik Willis, and people still don't have enough tape of him in the Packers offense that if we could have squeaked one out. Now you lose. Love comes back. He threw a couple interceptions. Yeah, he battled back, but is his confidence going to be shaken? I mean, it looked like he didn't have the strength in his... People were saying, whoa, did that knee affect his throwing? Well, yeah, no shit it did. If you don't have a stable knee, how are you going to be throwing? Like we saw with Tom Brady when he had his knee injury, it took him a while to come back from that. So rushing back from a knee injury is not a good move. It's not. So the analysts that were surprised by him being shaky, don't rush him back. Take the time. The season's long. All you have to do is make the wild card, right? You're in a tough division. Vikings have been surprisingly good. I did pick up the Packers, D, because I thought, Sam Darnold's not for real, is he? He can't be. I didn't know what other defense to play. I had the Lions, but what did they ended up doing? 1 point, and they gave up 27. I guess the Packers had 6 points. They did get an interception and 2 fumble recoveries. Detroit had an interception and 1 fumble recovery, but Detroit gave up a ton of yards in that game. So I made the right move in terms of defenses that I had available to me, but not good. That's like my team. I had Brees Hall. I figured Richardson would be good. I knew Murray would kind of score, and so when I got Harrison, then I was kind of regretting it because I was like, man, that was a dumb move. And then I saw you drafted McBride, and I thought this would be good. I can run McBride as a flex because I had already got Kittle. And then I thought, is Kittle going to be healthy? And then, of course, they're both questionable every week. So it adds a little bit of, I don't even know, stress every week because I'm like, which tight end's going to play? And then I thought both of them might be out last week. So then I thought, do we even have any tight ends available for me to even put on my roster? So I looked, the pickings are very slim. So if these guys go down, I'm glad I actually ended up doing both guys because who was it? McBride hasn't been good. So if you want him, I'll trade him back to you. I need a quarterback. I don't know if I want Murray, though, because he's kind of inconsistent this year. I'm waiting for him to get hurt. That's what will happen. I'll trade for Murray. I'll give you Richardson, and Richardson will be like, oh, healthy. Then I'd be screwed. So I'm going to ride it out. Ride and die with my guys.
See, here's with the news of Las Vegas being open to trading Devontae Adams, I thought, I don't even know if I want him to be traded to Pittsburgh or not, because they're willing to trade him for like a second-round draft pick, and I feel like, oh, he would be like that would be a good fit. But
Pickens fumbled that ball, and it annoyed me. Whenever he did that, I don't know if you saw that.
No, I did not.
He was down the sideline, and it was almost like a juju move where he just like fumbled it right out of bounds, and I thought, why are you doing that? But again, I don't know long term if getting another big time receiver is going to help that offense. They're winning, or they were winning. Don't bring him in. Do you agree, or do you want them to bring in another weapon? Do you think they need one?
Well, I don't think it hurts. Like, I feel like they're winning games right now, and they're just kind of piecemealing the offense together. I think adding now, again, if they're adding Devontae Adams, I hope that they're adding him as like he's playing a Christian McCaffrey game where he's like, oh, I'm sick. And then suddenly gets better. Like, if that's the type of game he's playing right now, for as much of a potential cancer as that is, I feel like that is help. Like, they need someone who wants to contribute and wants to be there, you know?
Yeah, that's why I'm kind of afraid of them getting him. I don't even know what team fantasy-wise that you'd be excited about except for maybe the Jets. Because Lazard has been getting a lot of points. I saw he got picked up early, and I even told some people to pick him up, so I don't remember who picked him up. I'm like, you should pick up Lazard because Aaron Rodgers has been staring him down. But if somehow the Jets were like, we're all in, we didn't like that Broncos, I mean, that would help me a ton too. If Brees Hall had Devontae Adams, they couldn't like stuff the box and try to focus on him. And he's good enough to get his stuff, and Aaron kind of knows that they need the running game. So why not? That would be probably the best situation for him. Back with Aaron Rodgers on a new team, has a quarterback he's comfortable with, that knows him, that needs receivers, right? Because they're trying to throw Garrett Wilson along, and he's not getting it. It was kind of weird watching him play because Aaron Rodgers was clearly frustrated that one of the games I watched, like Wilson would cut his route short and do other weird things, and I thought he's playing like a rookie, but he's been here for a couple years, I think. And it's weird, like watching that, and then seeing some of these other young guys like Jordan Addison just catching up and being able to make big time plays, and it's like maybe Wilson just doesn't have an understanding of the game to compete at a high level. I don't know. I could be wrong because I feel like he should be producing more with Aaron Rodgers. So the easiest way to get both of them up is to bring in Devontae Adams. You have him, Wilson, Lazard, and then you have Breece Hall. That's a championship team. I mean, you're going to have to compete with the Chiefs in the playoffs anyway because you're in the AFC.
Well, right. And not only that, but I feel like Baltimore is going to be a tough team come playoff time. That you're going to have to score points.
So every year they talk about Baltimore. Do you think that Derrick Henry is the missing piece?
Yes.
He's the missing link. Like
as long as he maintains his health, because having Richard as the fullback, they have a heavy power fullback. They have a heavy power running back that really matches well with Lamar Jackson's run game. That if they're not relying on him to overly run the ball, I feel like that could really be a powerful weapon for their offense.
And that's where I think the power run game is something that they were missing. They were always trying to put Lamar Jackson in like, hey, you're going to be running behind these power. But Derrick Henry has just been pounding teams. It's almost similar to how, I don't want to say Michigan this year because the Michigan offense sucks, but it's pretty clear that Harbaugh has been like, they've been working together or like at least talking about it. Because that offensive system where they're running, where you can just take body blows and body blows, you can do that and teams aren't ready for it early in the game where like Derrick Henry, running like 80 yards. It's kind of like the national championship game where Michigan's able to break long touchdown runs early and just break the spirit of the team. And knowing that that's there, that opens up so much other just offensive concepts that typically the Ravens haven't been able to do. And when come playoff time, they do, because my concern is not the talent. It's kind of the Harbaugh coaching, which is why I brought up like the connection with Jim. They get conservative. You saw it with the Chiefs-Chargers game this week. I thought, that's old Jim right there. He's getting conservative. He's not doing I don't know when he broke, right? Because he wasn't always like that. He's running naked boots with Alex Smith at the Niners. When he came to Michigan, he was running crazy things. I don't know if it was like he has trouble with the snap Michigan State game or like one of the Ohio State games where one of the guys threw an interception late. And like something in Harbaugh, he snapped where he's like, I'm just going to be so conservative that we are never going to risk turning the ball over. So much so that like when they talked about, well, Michigan ran like 30 times versus Penn State straight because I was thinking like they were doing that because they didn't want Penn State to have the ball. And they just were able to run the ball. Like the games at Ohio State that Donovan Edwards took those long touchdown runs and broke their back. It was third down. Of course, Harbaugh is running the ball to keep the clock going. It's not like he's some revolutionary coach. So when he's there and he's super conservative, I feel like John is doing the same exact thing with the Ravens where they're like, well, playoff time, we can't mess around here. We can't like get creative. And they go back to like this old, we're going to play scared. And it's every year with the Ravens. And of course, in the NFL, you have an offense that's dynamic like that. You have to take risks a little bit. It's almost like they think, well, I bought the hype. We have 13 wins or whatever in the regular season. We're winning this game no matter what. And then when things don't go their way, it's too late. Too late. So I want to see it. Maybe Derrick Henry's enough that the conservative offense will work. And it'll just be if the Ravens win the Super Bowl with Derrick Henry and a conservative approach in the playoffs again, just imagine Jim and John both doubling down. You're going to see an offense where they run the ball like 80% of the time. They're like, well, Jim got a national championship. John just got another Super Bowl, so he's up. Right now, in championships, they're tied. One Super Bowl, one national championship. If John wins another one, and because Jim thinks Super Bowls are more important, right, anyway. So then he'd be a little bit behind. It'd be the most conservative Chargers offense of all time you would see. He would double down on it. I guarantee it. I guarantee. When I saw Herbert not making throws in that Chiefs game and they weren't even trying, I thought, good Lord. 8-yard outs. I remember those days. That was just last year. Just last year. But that's all I have for the NFL. Anything else you want to talk about for the NFL?
No.
I mean, I'm sure I had some other stuff that I was going to talk about, but I'll forget about it. Let's get into college. You want to kick it off? You kicked it off with Florida State last week. I didn't want to step on your toes because I don't want to talk about Florida State because they've been pretty bad this year. So I don't want it to feel like I'm rubbing it in on you.
Well, no, because when we had our lone win, you just glossed right over it.
Because hey, it's week 5. Florida State got their first win. I don't know if you want to talk about that on the show. You might have been like, damn, barely won or something. I don't know. Glossed over it. I added in my notes. So let's kick off. Florida State lost again, right? Do you think? Because I'm going through some conspiracies from a Clemson side of things. Do you think that DJ is actually hurt?
I'm going to say, for his sake, I hope he is hurt because he's been playing absolutely horrific. And I feel like they were pretty active in trying to rebuild the lineman pipeline. And I feel like that was always an issue that I had, that when it was the end of the Jimbo Fisher era, like the offensive line was so unbelievably bad that there was nothing you could do. Like, and I feel like I'm seeing glimmers of that right now with this Florida State team because it's like I want to be mad at the quarterbacks, but on one hand, no one's catching passes. He has like a tenth of a second to throw the ball before running for his life. So it's like there's so many other issues that are glaring at the same time that it's like maybe there's other fish to fry too.
I honestly thought you were joking. Well, I guess I didn't think you were joking, but I thought you were exaggerating when you said that Florida State has one of the worst offenses, and I thought there's no way that they're worse than Michigan. So I looked it up on the stats, and they were by like 10, right, in the rankings. They're almost in last place. So I tried to take a whole screenshot because I thought, wow, they are pretty bad. Because I haven't looked at advanced stats for Florida State, but I do go through because the Michigan fan base is great, let's be real. So they have like some of the advanced stat stuff people put out. Michigan gets pressured at the quarterback position in almost 2 seconds whenever they snap the ball. So it doesn't matter who's quarterback for them. The line play has been that bad that it's alarming. And so if Florida State's having the same issue, it doesn't matter if DJ's back there or not, because DJ looked decently pretty well last year at Oregon State. But having the turnover, maybe that's been the issue. I hate to just generalize whatever on the side of things because we really don't know if it's DJ or if it's like scheme and they just didn't adapt to him or what. But he hasn't fit in. And so they said it's his pinky on his non-throwing hand, which, let's be real, quarterbacks play with broken fingers all the time. A pinky, especially. That's like the one that you don't need. I just think if you're like drinking tea, even you just have it up, pinky's up. It's not even going to touch the ball. So the fact that that could be the injury, I think, is where a lot of people's ears perked up. And maybe, I know we're just speculating it on college kids, so I hate doing that sometimes. But having him out for the Clemson game is kind of big, because now you throw in Brock Glenn, that has played only in gigantic games, like what, the ACC championship game, the Georgia game, and now the Clemson game. He's going to be broken. He's what? Did he redshirt last year? Is he a redshirt freshman?
Yeah, he's a redshirt freshman.
He's going to be broken, dude. That's where it's like, but I don't understand, because I think I see a lot of freshman quarterbacks. Look at Oklahoma. They're playing a freshman. He's made some mistakes, yes. But he's going to learn so much from that he's going to grow. Like I heard from the Michigan side of things, hey, we can't maybe try a freshman quarterback because he's not ready. And yeah, maybe if the line is not good, which with Florida State is probably not good. So having a freshman quarterback, we're going to kind of see maybe he will spark things up. Maybe you can make the quick reads. I just don't understand how some teams can have a quick Mike Leach type passing game ready to go, where it's like, this guy's going to be open, throw it to him or throw it away. And you're able to get some of those quick completions off the bat to keep things rolling. And then from there, build confidence and then start to make some of those deeper throws. And that also helps the line too, because if they know that you're getting the ball out quick, sometimes the D line lets up a little bit.
I thought this too. Remember at the beginning of the season, Alex Atkins was on a suspension because of some bullshit recruiting things that Florida State had. I wonder how much of that is drawn into that. There's like some of the inconsistencies with the offenses because they didn't have that consistent play with the offensive coordinator.
And that's a big thing too, because some teams, like, who just fired their offensive coordinator? Some Big Ten team just fired their offensive coordinator. And so you can make changes in the year. Some teams is like, well, we can't do anything. We got to keep riding it out. Let's see what happens. Putting in a new quarterback, like, unbelievable. And so that's where, yeah, suspensions and all kind of things can definitely make an impact. So having players not available, not get ready, I just don't know. Clemson seems like things have been clicking for them. Yeah, they got killed by Georgia, and Georgia didn't look good against Bama. But I still think that Clemson's probably going to be the ACC rep in the playoffs. So I don't think Florida State has a good chance. Could they pull off? Is it at Florida State or is it in Clemson? I think it's at Tallahassee, right? Or am I wrong?
Yeah, I was in Clemson last year.
Okay, so we'll see. That's a big hope for Florida State, but I think Norvell, it looks like he lost the locker room, and that's what you don't want to see. Because undefeated season, players quit before the bowl game. New season, players quit. Are they even going to make a bowl game? This would be one of the most heavy drops in recent times, right?
Yes.
They were, what, a top 10 preseason pick?
They would, but it's also like when you look at how crazy things were for them, like they went from missing the playoffs to rebuilding, and you know some of the bigger media outlets that I've read, they're chalking up some of it to like struggling to find the motivation after the snub and keeping guys engaged in the process, which I'm sure that could be a potential part to it. But at the same time, I feel like you have a lot to play for right now, and not just from a playoff this year standpoint, because I think that ship has sailed. But I feel like trying to build, because what you don't want to do is you don't want to put yourself in a scenario like where Florida's at right now, where their program is in such disarray that trying to have some consistent recruiting, player development. Like I feel like they're stuck in a really bad cycle that they're gonna have. It's gonna be hard for them to really build their recruiting back up because of how terrible the state of their program is.
Yeah, but you don't know that. There's been rumors that that there's mutual interest between them and Lane Kiffin. And Lane Kiffin just lost at Ole Miss to, was it Kentucky? Where the interest, according to the rumors, are he knows Ole Miss hasn't been able to seal the deal NIL-wise. And they're not going to be able to make it up. Right? That program just doesn't have history. That's why people were talking about, like, well, if we can have a mega conference of all these top teams, like, then it will be a real fair shot for Ole Miss. It's like, you can't force the players to play at Ole Miss. You can't. You can't force them to play at Kentucky. So, like, the fact that Stoops has Kentucky that could have gave up on their season early, the fact that he has them ready to go and winning some games, especially against, like, top 10 teams, it's, like, unbelievable at this point. And so you can't tell me that there's no connection. Ole Miss, Lane Kiffin rumors heat up. Or Florida, Lane Kiffin rumors heat up last week. The same week, Ole Miss comes out flat and loses their game. Right? That tells me the head coach, his head is not there. I've said the same thing. You can kind of see when these rumors are true. Doesn't matter if he has a top 10 team. If he knows that, like, well, looking at Georgia and looking at Bama, we just can't compete. But I know Florida has won national championships recently. They're willing to give me X, Y, and Z in terms of NIL. We can be right on top. Look at like what Florida State did. They didn't like that. So he knows that they're in. I think that's kind of like looking at the Michigan side. When Harbaugh came back, he knew, like, look at Michigan State's program and Ohio State's program, way ahead of Michigan at that point. Come back, and that was before NIL. Michigan could have been back so much faster if NIL was there. And so that's what you're looking at with Florida. He flips to Florida. He takes how many transfers with him? So he's able to get the top guys from Ole Miss, most likely. He's able to get even more recruits than he probably wouldn't have been able to get in the first place. Guys he has connections with that are going to list them in the top 3 and say, like, yeah, you know what, we're just not going to go to Ole Miss. But he goes to Florida. Maybe they're already going to Florida because they're from the state of Florida. You never know. So that's a thing, something to watch that I wanted to bring up. Keep an eye on Lane Kiffin. When rumors start to happen and then the team comes up flat, is the coach's head somewhere else, even if they're top 10. Like, they could whatever end up being. Like, Ole Miss and Missouri have not looked like top 10 teams this year to me. I mean, hell, Michigan hasn't either. Michigan might be the worst top 10 team on offense that I've ever seen. I would say in history, but some of those, like World War II offenses, were pretty bad. So, I can't even throw stones. I think the thing for the pollsters right now, they think USC is good because they beat LSU, right? But then Michigan beat them. So everyone, if you look at like the poll, every time people are putting their votes, they just put Michigan one higher. And so you're at a point where now USC and Michigan are both creeping into the playoffs because they want USC in, and I guarantee they're begging. They're like, Michigan, please lose the game so we can drop you guys like a Led Zeppelin, baby. Let's just drop this, get you guys out of the pool so fast, faster than Florida State. Because like even Notre Dame loses to NIU, and people still vote for them in the teens, and it's almost insane. Because even if Michigan's lost to Texas, they're the number 1 team right now. I think they're still number 1. Maybe Bama is. But that's the best loss in the country. Other than maybe Georgia if Bama jumped them. I don't know. I didn't look at the polls. But I'm looking at that and I'm wondering, what are these teams like? Some of these fans that keep talking about one big super conference, they're just insane. I can't take it. Like, maybe it's because I talk to a lot of Big Ten fans, but they're delusional. First off, as a Michigan fan, after the bullshit the Big Ten pulled last year, I don't want the Big Ten to be anywhere near in charge of anything. I don't want one gigantic Big Ten. They suspended Harbaugh with no investigation. There's still been no proof that Harbaugh knew anything. They just suspended him, and then the teams were like, oh, yeah, see? And normally a conference like the SEC, that never would have happened because they want all their teams to win the championship. The Big Ten's like, no, we don't want you to win it. We would rather lose it than have you guys win it. And so screw those teams. Let Indiana and Purdue and Northwestern and all those teams that were crying, Rutgers, Maryland, let them get left behind. Let them get left behind. I mean, the only teams that they said stuck up for Michigan and Harbaugh at the meetings last year were Iowa and Minnesota. And even this year, Minnesota was crying about the onside kick review or whatever. I don't know why they called the penalty on review. They said that Minnesota touched the ball before 10 yards anyway. Then they said that Minnesota also blocked Michigan guys before the ball went 10 yards. So if they would have reviewed it, Minnesota would have never got the kick anyway. I don't know why the media didn't report that. They're just stuck with like they're gonna change the rule because Michigan got off scot-free. It's like Minnesota had 3 potential violations on the same play. They weren't ever getting the onside kick. It shouldn't have came down to it. Michigan's coaching should have been way better. But this is the kind of stuff that I'm tired of, and I don't care. If they make one big super conference, don't take all these hanger-ons. Don't take them. I don't care. Georgia and Bama's game had 12 million viewers, which I saw a bunch of the SEC slappies were like, one of the best games of all time. Michigan and Ohio State had like 19 million. Not even close. Like, not even the same stratosphere. Yeah, 12 million is going to be one of the most watched games. Even when Michigan and Ohio State were bad, they were still getting like 10 to 12 million viewers. So having a top 5 matchup, that's 7 million people behind the Ohio State-Michigan game. 7 million people behind. That's why the Big Ten makes the most money. That's the premier SEC matchup. No game is going to come close to that. Maybe Texas, Bama if they play. Maybe. I don't know. Like, we don't know because like with Quinn Ewers not there, Arch Manning has not looked good. I would want a rematch with Michigan and Texas if Arch Manning was the quarterback. And I know Michigan has no quarterback. You could say Orgy's new quarterback, whatever. Michigan has no offense. I would take a rematch with Manning because he's a freshman. He didn't look good. That's why going full circle back to Florida State with their freshmen. I don't know, Matt, if that's going to work out. Especially against Clemson and maybe Dabo being back. I did have 2 other random things that I forgot to bring up last week. I'm looking through my notes here. Did you know that Michigan opened up a new campus, dude?
No.
In LA.
Oh, wait, I think I did see that, actually.
So remember how I was talking about it a couple years ago during COVID? And this might be another story we broke. We started to help break the Gonzaga story. We broke this story a long time ago, years ago. I talked about there were rumors that Ross, the owner of the Miami Dolphins, was like pushing to have his business school or whatever open another campus, right? And I said, if he puts it in Miami, wouldn't that be awesome for recruiting and football? You just have your spring game and practice down there in Miami. And everyone's down there. It would help a shit ton with recruiting. And it would kind of get around with the rules that Harbaugh created. Remember how he was doing satellite camps? It's not a satellite camp if you have a campus in Florida. Instead, we were wrong on the location. They opened it in LA. Will that help? I don't know. But when they played USC, they were like bragging about it. And I thought, is this some type of like cruel joke before we play USC that we're going to open a campus down there? And then we beat them in football. And so they had to have a rough week. So they had that. Also, in horrible news, the Michigan M-Den store went bankrupt. Who knows why? They just won the national championship selling tons of merchandise, but they were so leveraged that they had to declare bankruptcy and had to sell to a new owner. That's why I sent you that. That's why I sent you that meme of like it was like Walmart Wolverines or whatever. Like making a joke that Walmart. I forgot to explain it to you because I was going to talk about it on the show. But that's what everyone's feared. It's like, who are the new owners? Because it would be hilarious. Everyone at Ohio State's always like, you guys are just Walmart Wolverines. I guess it's more Michigan State fans that say that. Walmart Wolverines are everywhere. If Walmart sponsored the Michigan official store or owned it, that would be hilarious. Like you go to Walmart in PA and it just has like random Michigan gear everywhere. You're like, what the hell? That would be top notch trolling. Because they didn't change. They were like, we're not changing anything. It's still going to be called the M Den. And so they just sent me the welcome email, which reminded me that I forgot to talk about it on the show. It was like, welcome back. You can get your own, your same shirts, which annoys me with the Michigan offense because the shirts this year say smash on them. Like, yeah, that's what we're going to do. Just smash the ball up the middle 100 times a game. But that's exactly what we're doing. Like, there's no type of thing. And that's why I'm jealous of whatever team fired their offensive coordinator in the Big Ten. I think it might have been Purdue now that I'm thinking about it. Michigan should fire theirs. Like Campbell, just demote him. Just have an open tryout. Bring anybody in. Do something. Michigan plays at Washington. They're dogs on the road to a Washington team that has 2 losses that is going to be hyped up from the national championship. That's my last football talk that I wanted to talk about. They talked about expanding the Big Ten. They talk about with the Pac-12 coming back. Pac-12 has been pushing for their automatic bid. So there's 2 things going on with this. And this is my final bill, Matt. Then you can wrap up if you want. The Big Ten and the SEC met today while the Pac-12 was coming back because it seemed like the conferences were just going to condense, right? We're just going to end up with like 5, 6 gigantic conferences for football. The Big Ten and the SEC, with the Pac-12 coming back, now we're going to have 10 conferences again. Why? Nobody wants that. Like bringing in St. Mary's or whatever and having a basketball conference, awesome. Paying Gonzaga full share is insanity, if we're being honest. Because I don't know how they're going to be able to make $30 million or whatever in basketball. They're going to be the richest basketball school, basketball only school, in the country. So having that there is insane. So now the Big Ten and the SEC decided to have a scheduling meeting where they're talking about making a cross-schedule game. The Big Ten wants the SEC to go to 9 games. Then they want to have a crossover game, kind of like the Big Ten ACC Challenge or whatever in basketball used to be. They want a Big Ten SEC Challenge. And then what they're going to do is then they would, I think from the Big Ten side of things, I don't have any context in the SEC side. But then they're going to try to push that the other 2 games be regional type smaller schools rivalries or whatever. So like Michigan might play Western Michigan and whatever. So like Notre Dame would have no chance getting back on this schedule. You would basically have 2 warm-up games, then the SEC games, and then your 9-game schedule if you're a Big Ten school. Maybe you could still play like Iowa for their regional game. They might play Iowa State. Would that be a good move? Probably not. Like Penn State might be able to play Pitt or West Virginia, but most likely they'll play Temple and Villanova or something, right? And then on top of that, they said with this big agreement that it might be better for them to just get 4 auto bids each to the playoffs, making it 8 of the bids taken by the top.
Which is exactly the thing that I was worried about.
Which to me, I told you. So then in this new agreement with the Pac-12 coming back, because I don't know if the Pac-12 coming back triggered this, because they seemed to be fine for a while. And there are rumors that they were trying to get more auto bids, that it was maybe 3, maybe 4, but that they wanted the other conferences to be in, to where I thought maybe they'll just go to a 16-team playoff. You have 4 from the Big Ten, 4 from the SEC, and then whatever the other conferences are, because they're all going to consolidate, you might have 4 other auto bids plus 2 at large. Because like they kind of said in this meeting that there were other concessions put in place last time for Notre Dame, and they really don't care about them, is what they made it seem like. Like they're willing to do 8 bids, then you have a Big 12 gets a bid, the ACC gets a bid, and a group of 5 gets a bid right now. The last bid would be left open. If the Pac-12 wants their auto bid back, which let's be honest is going to be impossible, I don't think they'll ever get it back, then that would push Notre Dame out, or they would have to jump to a 16-team playoff. I've also heard that 24-team playoff, like the lower division, isn't off the table. So that if they want more auto bids, maybe, because they don't want to just be locked in, because this is my fear too. If they get 4 auto bids in, like let's say this year, it might be Michigan, or it might be Ohio State, Penn State, Oregon, and USC. Michigan would have no chance, right? They'd be the fifth team. They'd be out, even if they pull off an upset and finish like 10-2 or something. If they had an extra loss and USC won out because of the way the schedules are, Michigan would be the team that would have been out in this scenario. But what if they can they get the at-large? Would they have to just beat Notre Dame? Because like I don't see the way the rankings are right now. It's like what, 5 SEC, 5 Big Ten, really, with Miami being the only team that's out.
I mean, that's kind of what I'm thinking, but I don't know.
Because like looking at the rankings right now, I'm pretty sure that's how it is. I think Miami's the only team in the top 10 right now, which is why Clemson fans have been begging Miami to stay undefeated. Even though the ACC gets an auto bid, it's not really Clemson fans. ACC fans down here think the only way the ACC can get 2 teams in this year is if Miami stays undefeated and Clemson beats them. That way they both have 1 loss at the end of the year. And Clemson's loss will be to Georgia. Miami's loss will be to ACC champ Clemson. I don't think they play each other during the regular season. I could be wrong. But that's kind of what they were going for whenever I talk to people down here. They love the ACC. They don't want to see it go. They would rather Florida State and Clemson leave, which I did hear one little tidbit. I keep saying it's my last thing. But someone pointed to me like this that I didn't really... I mean, I guess it makes sense now, where the discussion again about making Florida State and Clemson earn more money is not being looked on favorably anymore, right? Where inside the ACC now with like these other conferences, expansions going, where I guess the numbers came together where whatever Florida State and Clemson want to make more, like in terms of a share, the other ACC schools, when they look at those numbers, they don't agree. Because the middle schools that actually sell out football, NC State, Virginia Tech, I forget what they named a couple, but those are the only 2 that kind of stood out to me that have a football history, right? They're selling out their stadium. They're going to take a lower cut than what the Big 12 schools could make or are making. They're already making less than the Big 12 schools. So they're saying it's insane right now for the ACC schools like Clemson and Florida State to ask for more money to put them ahead of the Big 12 when now these guys are going to be making less, like Pac-12 money. They can just go ahead and join the Big 12 and not have to give up any cut. And to me, that makes perfect sense because they're probably not going to get it. If they're going to get the call to the SEC or the Big 10, it's going to happen regardless of whether they're in the ACC or the Big 12 or whatever conference. They're going to get the call because of their location. Virginia Tech's going to get called because they're in Virginia. NC State would get called because they're in North Carolina. Whether they picked UNC and Duke or whether they pick just Virginia because they want a bloodbath school, those schools aren't getting picked anyway. So the only way the SEC or the Big Ten continues to expand into those states, they have to pick one of the teams that are there. Do you take an empty Virginia or do you take Virginia Tech? Because like hell, Nebraska has not been good for the Big Ten. But you got to admit, they're good for TV. Their stadium is sold out. They don't have, like, I think it was a UCLA or USC I was watching, and they talked about it being a sellout, and the end zone was tarped. And I thought, that's not a sellout. Untarp the end zone. Like, it's your stadium. You're putting a tarp over that. You know how completely embarrassing that looks? Give me a break. That's my final thought. So there is pushback I'm hearing from some of these middle schools. They've seen the numbers. They don't like them. They don't like the agreement because maybe the top earners, they could kind of earn that back. But even the numbers they say isn't like whatever Clemson and Florida State would get ahead right now is barely more than what the Big 12's making with this agreement. And the other schools are saying, I'm not going to give up more of a cut. I could basically make that same amount if I just joined the Big 12. So I'll leave it at that. Anything else you want to talk about?
I did think, you know, when you're looking at the expansion of the different teams from the ACC into the Big Ten, I feel like it's funny to me when you look at some of the rankings, like the TV ratings, and Florida State still is having an Detroit for as bad of a year as they're having right now. They're still getting decent exposure on TV, and the numbers are. It's not like nobody's tuning in, whether it's to root for them or to watch them get shellacked. They're still drawing nationally. Like their ratings are still way above what anyone else in the conference is getting. So I mean, you can say what you want about the state of the program or their thoughts about leaving the conference, but there's some fruit to it. I mean, they're clearly one of the teams that the ACC had their eggs in that basket of hoping, that they're going to ride out this playoff bid and that's going to be their lock. And when that didn't happen, they had to have this Miami game where the last second Hail Mary by Virginia Tech, and they ruled it a touchdown on the field, and they came back and they were like, no, we're waving that off. Because what happens if you give Miami that bad loss to Virginia Tech? You essentially mathematically rule out the ACC from qualifying for the playoffs at that point, unless you factor in the Notre Dame bump.
Well, they'll get the auto bid still.
And they could still get the auto bid, but they're still semi-ACC affiliated that they would just take all the money, though. So it's not like it would even help benefit the programs at all, other than they could put it on their banners for advertisements.
Yeah, that's where I don't know how big, because I keep hearing about, the conferences are going to split up, and then we try to do pods, and we talk about the pods. And some of the pods I see are just like, I don't see how. One thing I saw, it's like the Big Ten's going to take like a ton of these teams and split into the pods. And one of the pods was like, well, we have to separate Ohio State and Michigan, and their schedules looked awful. And I thought, they're not going to agree to this. You're not going to separate them, and then Michigan's premier game be like Michigan State. And then they said, well, you can have a protected rivalry, but we've seen that not work out. Penn State has no rival. So they get the benefit of the doubt. Michigan,
well, they put it on their poster. They're unrivaled. So
yeah, well, then Michigan and Ohio State are going to what? To make the conference more money, they have to take one more loss, one of them every year because they play each other? Like, that makes no sense. So why would they agree to that? Either put them in the same division or whatever. Because, like, I saw the guy put it together. He's like, well, I'll put Notre Dame over here. It's like, no, screw Notre Dame. Get rid of Michigan State, too. No one cares about that game. Put Ohio State and Michigan together. And then that's the premier game. Find out what the other premier games are. Like, is it USC, Notre Dame, whatever, if you're going to bring them in. And don't even give them any special treatment. Just get rid of them. I did see an update that DJ, his broken finger is on his throwing hand, not his non-throwing hand. So that's why he's going to be out. And then Seminoles, they lost another high-profile recruit, Matt. Those are the news. Bro, Seminoles have 2 stories about them. Michigan also has 2 on top of ESPN with the onside and then the Big Ten protocol. So that's it, dude. That's how you know. If they're talking about Michigan and Florida State, you know that those are going to be draws. Whether they're just covering us negatively all the time is kind of annoying. But other than that, I just don't understand what they're going to do. I do think it's weird that this new playoff thing, putting in the protections for the ACC, Big 12, and Notre Dame as an at-large, along with the group of 5. That's what the new playoff talks are about. So they're letting out all of whatever. The Big Ten is talking about potentially with the SEC, maybe not even doing the 12-game schedule like they have now. Either doing the Big Ten and the SEC like conference championship weekend as a play-in round to the playoffs, where because I've talked about doing this, where you have the top 8 from the conference play. So then whoever wins those 4 games on that championship weekend, those are the 4 teams that get an auto bid. And then the TV networks are just going to throw money at them, right? If you set that up, like last year, you would have had what? I think Michigan would have had like Northwestern or someone dumb. But then you would have had like Ohio State playing someone, Penn State having a chance to get in. Like, it would be insanity. The other thing would be if they did that and the other conferences didn't agree, they could have that flex game and then only have an 11 game schedule where it's one warm up game, one SEC game, the 9-conference schedule, and then a Big Ten playoff round instead of the championship game. But I honestly, I wouldn't mind that. Go back to the regular season championships where whoever has the top record, if you're tied, like Michigan and Ohio State had tied a couple times in the East, since you don't have divisions, you're just the champ. That helps out smaller schools right now. Rutgers right now is undefeated. They never won the Big Ten ever. If they win the Big Ten and get to play in the championship game, they're going to get their faces smashed in. So at least if you get rid of that option and let them just be Big Ten champs, that would help recruiting and that would help build up some of these smaller programs. Because like how many times would like Northwestern have made the Big Ten championship game only to get killed? Purdue only to get killed. Maybe if they were able to just claim that they were Big Ten champs, that would help recruiting. And then the bigger programs, like who cares if you're tied, right? They already have how many split champions throughout history. It helps the number because then Michigan and Ohio State can go back to sharing titles again too. So that's it. You have anything else you want to talk about?
No, just I want to see how the Brock Glenn era starts out, and hopefully we rally around our mustached freshman and to get back on the winning track.
Yeah, people have been worried about you. Florida State being down, your fantasy team barely putting up points.
But the odd thing with my fantasy team is that I'm still a front runner for the conference champion. So there's something there.
You want me to trade for you for Devontae Adams while he's out?
But this is the last thing for me is that part of my absentness has been due to our flag season, which has finally ended.
Oh, thank God for you.
So
we still have a couple weeks down here because the rains and stuff. It's been crazy.
It was nice tonight for the first time since July that it was Tuesday night and I was able to just go home and not have an extra practice.
Nice. That's awesome.
So it was a challenging year for flag, and now I'm officially moving up to tackle again for next year. So exciting to see move up into the next phase and see what the next challenge presents.
All right, cool. Well, we'll keep following along. Let us know if you want us to talk about anything on the show. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next week.